5 when OJ started that fateful drive. His four-way hazard lights were blinking, and no one knew what the juice was thinking.
I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Chocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killer. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Crossed the desert bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
This is Oversight Live, your advocate for good governance. We're putting the site back in. Oversight. Here's the watcher on the wall, your host, Ben Carpenter.
Well, good evening, folks. Good Friday evening. It is the 20th of February, 2026, and this is Oversight Live. Thanks for joining us tonight. What is Oversight Live, you might ask? Our state capitol in Alaska and our legislature is only accessible by plane and ferry. We have no road to our capital because it's down in southeast Alaska. It is prohibitively expensive, both in time and money, for most Alaskans to visit the Capitol or the legislature, most of our government offices on a regular basis. Providing oversight over our elected representatives in our government is a greater challenge for Alaskans than it is most Americans. Oversight Live is your road to Juneau until a real one can be built. A lack of a road is a major inconvenience, but with today's technology, it's no longer a valid excuse for not knowing what's going on. We will endeavor to bring you convenient and relevant content so that you can be informed and educated with the actual truth without traveling to Juneau or having to filter the liberal media bias. You will have my bias, and I am unabashedly a limited government, fiscal, and social conservative. You have the opportunity to engage with your host, yours truly, and with other Alaskans to seek answers to your questions live and in real time. Build community with your neighbors. That is if you tell them about the show. And be better prepared to engage with your elected representatives and influence your community. If you have questions during the live show, please text them in your social media platform and I'll get them in real time. If you have questions while watching the recording, please email them to producer@oversightlive.com and I will do my best to get you the answers that you need. I served 6 years in the legislature, in the state legislature, and I want my experience to not go to waste. I'll do my very best to impart what I learned to you so that you're better informed. If you have a good question, there's a good chance that others will have the same question, and I will likely use that question on air for the edification of all. And we're going to have fun. So let's get started. All right, Friday. What a week. I'm not the only one feeling like this has been a long week and a lot of drama and a lot of energy to get through the week. Many of the committee meetings in the legislature were canceled today. I understand the House floor was a technical session. At least that's what I was told. Didn't confirm that for sure, but I think it is a technical session. And that usually means that legislators are taking a 3-day weekend. It was rough for some folks. Rougher for some others, I guess. I was looking forward to seeing the conversation on the House floor today with regard to the $500 million supplemental. So if it wasn't a technical and I had bad information, then maybe they already passed that bill. But I'm pretty sure that it was a technical session. I guess I can look it up real quick and find out because, I am a former legislator and I know how to do that, right? What was today's daily schedule here? Floor calendar. Oh my gosh, this is not for today. This is like 2000. Why do they do this? 2/20/26. Okay, 34th. It doesn't tell me. I was expecting that there be an announcement here that there was a. Yep, today was a technical session. There it is. 2/20/26 today, technical session. And the Senate was not in session today either. All right. Well, so during a session, during the legislative session, the chambers, the houses have to meet. Both the Senate and the House have to meet every 2 days, every 3 days. Every 2 days, every 3 days. So basically, they Monday, Wednesday, Friday they meet, and then you're supposed to meet on Friday. But if you have a technical session, meaning the speaker and the president show up, they gavel in, they they don't have a quorum, right? So they just do the bare minimum and then gavel out, and that was their session. Then they can go on their vacation and come back, or their long weekend and come back Monday morning for their next session, 2 days, 2 complete days later, right? So Saturday was 1 day, Sunday was the second day, and now they show up on the third day. And anyway, legislature does what the legislature is going to do. But so we didn't get to see a resolution to the supplemental, or as I like to call it, the second budget. You know, like second dinner in The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, Tolkien series. Second dinner, secondsies. What about second dinner? We've got a second budget, $500 million second budget, working its way through the House. You know what else happened this week? Senate Resources passed Senate Bill 180 out of committee. I think we're going to take a look at that tonight a little bit. It is now in Senate Labor and Commerce. Senate Bill 227 passed out of Senate Resources. And that's the governor's, part of the governor's fiscal plan. It was his sales tax and other tax provision bill. And they basically hijacked it and turned it into an education head tax, a oil tax, and a corporate income tax change bill. That's what happens. Legislature can do whatever it wants to anybody's bill. I guess the other big thing that happened is they removed the provision out of that bill that was the whole point of a plan, was political compromise, and all of the components of the plan need to go into effect if any of the parts of the plan are going to go into effect. So they removed that out of there in order for their tax bill to take effect regardless of whether any of the other fiscal plan gets passed or not. Okay, that bill's now in Senate Finance. I don't know, other things that are going on in the world, the U.S. Supreme Court kind of dealt a small setback to President Trump on his tariffs. My understanding is that that basically his tariffs that were made under emergency order, under one part of the law, they ruled unconstitutional. And so he'll just now redo the tariffs under a different part of law. And it further solidifies, because now the Supreme Court is on record as adjudicating this or having an opinion, it now solidifies his ability to issue tariffs under other laws. So I think it honestly probably strengthens his or the president's authority going forward. But that's things that people have been talking about. I know that there's one other subject that has been talked about, and it's been weighing heavy on my mind. You know, when we go down to Juneau as a legislator, there's absolutely no way that we can do what we do down there without support, without the staff that help. And you've got full-time staff that help everybody, right? So they run the various offices that help move the bills along and provide the legal assistance and the human resources and all the technical, microphones and and phones and network computers and all of the things that go into being able to run a legislature. But you've also got your office staff that are somebody you hired. You've got committee staff in some of the larger committees, like Finance Committee. They've got permanent staff that stay there regardless of who's in charge of the committee. But I'm really feeling for my friend and former colleague, now Senator George Rauscher, because he probably woke up or went to bed or something with the knowledge that his staff member had been arrested. And I don't know whether this is something that, I'm not even exactly sure the time frame of when this happened, but I imagine that because it's out in the news today that it's been a rough day. And I reached out to George and I said, hey man, I know you're having a rough time and I haven't even talked to you about it. You develop a bond with your staff. You're working in close quarters, long hours, many times. And for this, and for those of you that are not aware, the story is in the Alaska story and probably other locations here. I'm going to pull it up on the screen so that the staff member, Craig Valdez, he's been charged by a federal grand jury for counts of sex trafficking of children, sexual exploitation of children, coercion, enticement of minor, receipt of child pornography. So I know George Rauscher, and I know that this is like of any office that you might ever suspect would be playing kind of loose or have questionable morals. I mean, a number of years ago we had staff members getting drunk and leg wrestling in the after hours, right? I mean, the stupid things that you'll hear about within the legislature happening from time to time. You're not going to hear about that happening out of George Rauscher's office. Like, he's a respectable person. He's a God-fearing man, doing his best to raise his grandson. He and his wife are, and I remember seeing times when he would step out of meetings to go read a book to his grandson as they're trying to put him to bed. Like, class act. Like, I really like George Rauscher, and I feel for him right now because I know that the public scrutiny that'll be tempted to make him guilty by association. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. How could the office tolerate somebody like this? That's all nonsense, complete nonsense. If there's any office that is operating in good moral condition, it's George Rauscher's office. And this has got to be a blow, like a stab in the back, just a shot out of nowhere that you didn't see coming. I imagine. I haven't talked to George about the incident, but I feel for you, George, and keep your chin up. We'll be praying for you. I know you'll find somebody to replace him and keep moving on, but good Lord's got a plan there. But man, I mean, it can't be just me that is recognizing how much news is spent or takes up our life here, the airwaves, the space of what we call news that has something to do with sexual indiscretion and immorality, immoral behavior, taking advantage of other people with regard to things that should be left between husband and wife in a marriage This country's got no sense of itself. Now, you can't go a day without hearing something about Epstein and the list and whose name's on a list and who did what. And, you know, a member of the royal family gets arrested for the first time in, I don't know, hundreds of years. I mean, not only do we hear about it, but we're in the back of our mind, we're wanting to see it. Like, there's this list out there of people who've been behaving badly with kids, and now we want retribution. we want people to get arrested, and we want to hear about it. Like, we want action to be taken, and it seems like if it's happening incredibly slow, which is not a surprise to me with regard to government. It just takes forever for things to happen within government. But this is a problem that you can't legislate away. Elections don't solve problems like this. Like, this is a ill on our people, and it bleeds over into public service like this, into an office that is the furthest thing from it is not tainted by impropriety. Speaking of Senator Rauscher's office. Why do Christians need to participate in politics? It's not because Christians are perfect. Far from it. But Christians bring some Christians at least, some Christians bring at least some trustworthy understanding of what good moral behavior is. As soon as I say that, you'll be able to find examples of failures elsewhere, right? So it's not perfect. But if you don't have that, that Christian foundation, if you just get right down to it, the 10 Commandments, like, if you don't have that foundation, then anything goes. What's moral to one person is not moral is somebody else's vice. So you can have all of the answers. You can have all of the technical answers and the good ideas for what good policy is going to be in your legislature and your governor's office, your candidates that are running. You can have all of those candidates can have the best answers. If they're not moral people, then they're the wrong ones to send to the office. They're the wrong ones to hire. I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to be bigoted towards people that don't believe or have a faith that I do. I just recognize that we can't go a day without hearing about moral lapses in our society, right? And it didn't used to be this way. Yes, there's always been moral lapses. That's not what I'm saying. But it didn't used to be this way. Not to the extent that we're seeing now. And that hurts. I mean, it's not that I'm taking it personally, because I'm not in Juneau and I'm not part of this latest situation that happened down there. But I know George, and I feel for my friend. Like, I know this is something that bothers him just because I know George. Tawny, thanks for checking in. Yeah, I was pretty sure that it was a technical, and I just went to the website and confirmed it. Why not work 7 days a week while they're in session? Yeah, good question. you might from the outside think, you know what? You get 90 days by statute, you got 120 days. It's not like it's a full-time job for you. Just work and get it done, right? There's no way for me to pull up a calendar from like what the calendar that my staff kept for me for an example of a legislative day. So not only for the staff, but because the staff is making sure that the primary, the boss is where they need to be with the right paperwork and seeing the right people and helping manage that calendar, right? And make sure the boss is where they need to be. Most times I am having conversations before 8 o'clock in the morning, and I am not leaving the building until well after 6, 7 o'clock at night. And during your normal business hours, 8 to 5, many days my calendar is completely booked. Like I am running from one committee meeting to another committee meeting. And that's not unusual. That's all week long. Okay. So if you want to find time, and I was just lamenting to my wife that there was before the show tonight. It's like, you know what? I'm not exactly sure what I want to talk about. To be honest, the amount of time that I've had recently to sit and reflect on what needs to be talked about, not just going and picking something, but what needs to be talked about is I haven't spent that time. I've been busy doing other things. That is the, that's just what happens down in Juneau. You don't have time to reflect. Like when legislators step out for a 3-day weekend, if they're being honest and being working hard down there, that 3-day weekend every 2 or 3 weeks is needed. Gives time to reflect. So would I think that it would be sustainable for a majority of people to work 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month for 90 days? No. I think there's some people, you might call them workaholics or something like that might be able to swing that for a short period of time, but the pace and the amount of things, the amount of varying and differing subjects and things that you've got to stay abreast of are great. And I don't see how it would be any more successful than it is now if you worked 7 days a week, 12-hour days. Like it would be brutal. It would be brutal. Not that I don't appreciate and share in part some of that sentiment that says, you know what, as the boss, I'm like, you guys need to get your act together and get some stuff done. Like there are a lot of things that need to get done that don't get done. So I understand the thinking there. Just checking to see here what's on your guys' mind tonight. Which is another example of the irony of the ethics attack on Sarah Vance, who was likely the lost moral person in Juneau. The lost. You probably meant last moral person in Juneau. Yeah, she's not the last. There are moral people down there. But yeah, it would be like the shock would be something like that coming out of her office. Like you're like, what? Something does not make sense. That's literally what I'm thinking when I hear that it's a staff member for George Rauscher. I'm like, what? This doesn't make sense. Kim, thanks for joining. It's good to see you here tonight. Lynn, I feel bad for George. I've seen some pretty ugly comments about him merely because the guy was a staffer. He's your senator. Yeah. It is not fair to tie what happened. It's not that it's not fair. It is not accurate. It is not correct. There is absolutely no connection of allowance or tolerance or anything like that between George Rauscher, his policies and the way he runs his office, and something like this. That is, you can bank on that. Just don't get the flying back and forth every week. So wasteful. Yeah. Let me put it to you another way. And this, I don't know, maybe this is going to sound like an excuse. I always picked a location to stay, and it was a little bit more spendy, but I always picked a location to stay on it for my nights while I'm sleeping down there. I always picked a location to stay that's really close to the Capitol. It technically was in walking distance, but on rainy days, I wouldn't want to do that. They've got now apartment across the street that legislators can stay in. Right? Not everybody can fit it there, but anyway, the point I'm saying is the time that it takes you to get from your office to home is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If you got to go to the valley, then you're looking at a normal. I say normal, a commute, right? So it's a 30-minute commute or something to get into the valley, or if you have to go further. But the point that I'm getting at is it's a 2-hour flight, time taken, get to the airport and till you get to the other airport in Anchorage. It's about 2 hours to time it. So it's doable time-wise to be able to make that move on a day when you've got a floor session. You get up in the morning and make that flight. And as long as you've got good weather and get in, you've got plenty of time to get there and get in. So it's not, I mean, think about this. There are people that commute an hour or more one way to work every day in many parts of the country. So commuting 2 hours, and it would be a total of 4 hours on a weekend to get to and from Juneau is really not that. I mean, it is actually technically less travel time than most Americans spend getting to work if they have to travel an hour to commute to work in the morning, living in some suburb or whatever. It's not actually that bad. It's a pain in the butt because you got to go get through TSA security and do the whole travel, but it's not that bad. Lynn, the minority is mostly playing defense. Their level of work is determined by the agenda set by the majority. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. Those that are in charge can choose to have a lot on their plate or very little on their plate. And those who are not in charge, some of that decision as to whether you've got a lot on your plate is dictated by those who are in charge. But even when I wasn't in charge, I was still being productive with my time. And it's not to say that every day is a 12-hour day and it's all, busy all the time. That is, especially in the minority, is not necessarily that way. But it could be. You can be productive in getting things done, doing research and connecting with people, and there's plenty to be done, plenty to learn, and plenty of ways to get done. Just curious, Lisa says, but can staffers be vetted? Yeah, like any employee. You're hiring somebody as an employee, and you could do some sort of vetting. I would say that probably just like other employers, there is a certain amount of vetting that goes on. And to be honest, staffers kind of change bosses from session to session, and some stay with the same person for a long time, and others bounce back and forth. When a legislator doesn't get reelected or doesn't come back, then the staff that was there, if they're like a not a permanent staff, but somebody who wants to be there as a job and they don't really care which boss they work for, they'll just pick up the next legislator that comes in and work for them. So but there's not a process within the legislature, and I'm talking about the Human Resources Department, that I'm aware of, that is doing any sort of vetting, like a background check or anything like that. I don't think that that's happening. And you got to think about it too, because you're dealing in a political environment. And so that is something that could be weaponized. And so at what point does somebody's background prevent them from coming in and doing the job? Like what is the criteria? Would the legislature establish its criteria that says, hey, this is the certain expectations that we have of staffers, and they gotta meet this level, right? And then somebody just has to enforce it. That would be the Human Resources Department to enforce it. And maybe there are certain level of rules that exist right now, but to the best of my knowledge, there's not a background check. And honestly, how would a background check would have picked this up? I don't know. Maybe there's something there that could be found out, but we also have to be careful. There is this presumption of innocence, innocent until proven guilty, situation in the that we had better defend in this country. But you sometimes you just don't know. That's why it's such a shock. Like I didn't have a personal relationship with this particular staffer, but I recognize him. I know who he was. I know who he's worked for. Craig, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think that he's ever worked for Shower. I just said I know who he's worked for, but no, I don't think he's ever worked for Shower. Okay, so folks, let's learn something tonight. I want to show you something that just came out of Senate Finance. I'm sorry, just went to Senate Finance. No, got my bills confused. Senate Bill 180 just passed out of Senate Resources and is going to Senate Labor and Commerce. So let me share my screen here, and you can see what I'm doing. All right, there we go. Let's make this big. All right, so we've got the Alaska Legislature webpage, right? And so I want to go and look at Senate Bill 180. So I just type it in up there. Pops up. Bam. There's Senate Bill 180. Current status is in Senate Labor and Commerce. And that's really quick because they just passed it out yesterday. The status date, it is in Labor and Commerce as of the 19th, right? Okay. If you want to know, on April 22nd, the bill was read across the floor, first time read across the floor in the Senate, and it was assigned the Resources Committee, followed by the Labor and Commerce Committee, and then no other referral. That means as soon as Labor and Commerce is done, then it goes to Senate Rules to be calendared for a vote on the floor. It doesn't need to go to Finance, at least at this point. Now, the Senate President can add a Finance referral later if he so chooses, but it doesn't absolutely need to. So, I mean, this is really a small bill, right? If you look at the full text here that pops up, that's it. That's it. That's the bill. But what does it mean, right? An act relating to the regulation of liquefied natural gas import facilities by the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. That's the biggest hint that you have. Section 1, and the only thing it says, AS 42.05.711 is repealed. Okay. Yay. Are you a no? Are you a yes? Like, what does it do? All right. So I thought I would try to explain. So now we look and see, there's some options here that we can look at. So we go over here to the documents, and I'll just pop this up, and I pull up the sponsor statement. Okay. And we click this to get it. You didn't see that, but it takes you away from that part of the website. It goes to another part of the website. So this is a sponsor statement from Senator Kathy Giessel. She is the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 180. And this is her pitch, her written pitch to explain why she thinks that this bill needs to be passed. So she says Senate Bill 180 would repeal this statute, 42.05.711, subsection V. The repeal returns the Regulatory Commission of Alaska authority to regulate the import of liquefied natural gas. Why is this important? Why is this germane to our time? Because we're talking about having liquefied natural gas imported. This bill is needed to protect consumers and guarantee the lowest energy rates for ratepayers as Alaska looks to import liquefied natural gas. Okay. We've called our Constitution a despicable document because it's a socialist construct. And here we have government regulatory authority that is going to regulate the price. It is already regulating the price. Okay. And I'll get to this here in a minute. The legislation does not expand RCA jurisdiction to privately held import terminal, to a privately held import terminal. It merely lifts the cloud. I don't know what the cloud is. Is that a dark cloud or a sunny cloud? The cloud on RCA jurisdiction must be a dark cloud because people don't know that it has. So it lifts the cloud on jurisdiction over certified utilities gas supply contracts from LNG import terminal. Okay, so it's not actually regulating the import terminal or whoever's going to be running that or the importation of the LNG. What it's repealing the statute gives them the authority to regulate the gas supply contract with NSTAR, right? This will treat those gas supply contracts the same as supply contracts from Cook Inlet producer. So somebody who's producing gas out in Cook Inlet, as far as the RCA is concerned, they don't care. That's the same thing as LNG coming in. Whatever NSTAR then is going to try to charge customers for it is what the RCA cares about. Prior to the previous legislature, the Regulatory Commission of Alaska had the authority to regulate the import of liquefied natural gas. This bill would simply give that authority back to the commission. Okay. Okay. That's what that says. I think this is the supporting document that I want to look at here real quick. Okay. Nope. That's the wrong one. We don't have time to go into that. This is the one. Okay, this is a summary of RCA's position. So this is their, even though it doesn't have their heading on it, I'm hoping that it's their document. It says it's a summary of their position. So I would think that they're the ones that provided this on authority from a January 28th meeting. My hope is this is an RCA document and not a legislative staffer that took notes. It's not clear on the document what it is, but it looks like it's RCA's document. The RCA explains that its regulatory authority extends to public utilities operating in Alaska, regardless of whether the natural gas they distribute is produced in-state or imported. If imported gas is sold or transported by a regulated utility in Alaska to Alaska consumers, that activity falls within RCA jurisdiction. Okay. What I want to focus on here, I don't know if this is something that people took. Oh, I look over here at the notes and people are talking about hockey and Olympics. Should we change the subject? You guys paying attention, or should we talk about Olympics? I can do that too. I haven't watched any Olympics. I'm kidding. All right. What I wanted to point out here, and the conversation that I really wanted people to think about, okay? Down here it says consumer protection role, okay? The RCA frames its authority as necessary to protect Alaska consumers from unreasonable costs, supply risks, or unfair practices that could arise from reliance on imported natural gas, just like it does for gas from Cook Inlet, especially where utilities seek cost recovery through regulated rates. Okay. So there's probably some people that are like, what is the RCA? It's a fair question. Here is the Regulatory Commission of Alaska website. Okay. So just to have a larger conversation, I just want people to understand what is going on here. Politics is like hockey. You think? I think politics is like junior high, to be perfectly honest. Maybe hockey, like you win by one win, like you get the puck in the net 1-0 and you won, and the legislature's like that. You may get one bill done or one thing done and you win, I guess. I'm stretching here because Lynn, I'm not, I never would have thought hockey was like politics, but anyway, so there's a number of organizations that have existed in state history: the Alaska Public Service Commission, the Alaska Public Utilities Commission, Alaska Pipeline Commission, and now we have the RCA. So the Alaska legislature replaced the Alaska Public Utilities Commission with the Regulatory Commission of Alaska in 1999, giving it broad authority to regulate utilities and pipeline carriers throughout the state. The RCA monitors active certificates for public utilities and pipelines. These certificates cover a broad range of activities, from provisional certificates for small village water and wastewater systems to fully regulated telecommunications, electric, natural gas monopolies. Okay, so this is coming from statutory authority. Our legislature created this entity and gave it statutory authority to regulate things within our economy, okay? What do we know about government regulation? It's always sold as protecting something. We need this regulation because it's going to protect something. But what does it mean? It means it costs. It costs something. We got to fund the RCA, the regulated entities. It's going to cost them in regulatory paperwork and time and energy and lawsuits and legal advice and all of the things that go into being regulated, right? So that's the downside to having a regulatory authority. All right. So this statute authorizes the RCA to regulate public utilities by certifying public utility and pipeline services and to ensure that they provide safe and adequate services and facilities at just and reasonable rates. Okay. So members get appointed to this board, and those members act on behalf of the public to regulate services and facilities. This keeps rates as low as possible while allowing the regulated entities an opportunity, but not a guarantee, to earn a fair return. The argument here is that NSTAR, being the only company that is supplying gas, is a monopoly, and therefore you need a regulatory authority to speak for the people. Otherwise, the monopoly is going to gouge the people. Okay, so that's the big picture theory here. The RCA also determines the per kilowatt hour support for eligible customers of electric utilities under the Power Cost Equalization, PCE program. So we got $1 billion in a fund, and when the cost of electricity along the rail belt goes down, the formula says power cost equalization goes up, and a check is cut to Western Alaska, rural Alaska, for a subsidy on their energy prices. Okay. So they manage that. RCA manages that. So you got 5 full-time commissioners appointed by the governor, confirmed by the legislature for 6-year terms. Okay, what I see. You can come to this rcaalaska.gov and read this for yourself too, right? In most cases, when utilities request changes in either their rates, this is when do we need the Regulatory Commission in Alaska? When do we need it? When utilities request changes in either their rates or type of service they provide, the RCA provides notice to the public and allows for comment. The RCA then acts to approve or disapprove the utilities plan. Public notices appear as advertisements, blah, 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 blah. Some notices are also provided directly by the utilities in the form of flyers. Okay, so you've probably seen this. You probably received one in the mail and threw it in the trash and didn't even look at it. I'm sorry, was that too low blow? You do read your mail. Okay, who does the RCA regulate? What does this actually mean? Like, to put a name on it. Most entities providing telecommunications, electric, natural gas, water, sewer, garbage, or steam services to 10 or more customers are required to have a certificate to operate. A public utility or pipeline carrier must obtain a certificate of public convenience and necessity, which describes the authorized service area and scope of operations in the utility. A certificate may be issued when the RCA finds the applicant to be fit, willing, and able to provide the service. Okay. The regulation is of their rates, their services, and their practices of utilities that meet the criteria for a certificate of public convenience. However, the utilities that are not economically regulated, there are entities that aren't regulated. These include local government-owned utilities, very small utilities, cable, cellular phone, cooperatives whose members have voted to become deregulated. The RCA also regulates oil and gas pipeline carriers that operate within Alaska because you get to charge for flowing oil or gas through a pipeline, right? So the point that I'm going to point out here is most of our, to my knowledge, our electric utilities are all co-ops, I believe. Okay. So a co-op like HEA on the Kenai, HEA can choose, its members can vote to become deregulated and not have to suffer the regulatory cost of the RCA. It also means that you would not have the protection of the RCA. So NSTAR could charge you whatever it wants for gas. You'd be fine if you had another supplier. If HEA could get their gas somewhere else, then maybe you don't want to be regulated because now competition's you're going to be able to use the two against them. But if we've only got one supplier of gas, then you're kind of stuck, right? But here's the thing, is the cost of gas the only thing that matters to you as you're turning on your heat in the wintertime? Is the cost of gas the only thing that matters? There's probably something else that matters that you don't really think about. Because when you turn on your heat, you flick the switch over and it kicks on the heat on your thermostat, or you turn on your range and cook some hot water or boil some soup. There's probably something you don't ever think about. When you flip that dial or you turn on the stove, you're assuming that gas is going to flow. You're assuming that gas is going to flow. But as we're finding in South Central Alaska, if we don't do something, we're going to reach a point where some services, some customers may not have gas or may not have it all the time. There's not enough supply from the supplier, NSTAR, and the contracts that NSTAR has signed with natural gas suppliers in Cook Inlet, right? So we're all aware of this in South Central Alaska. Like this isn't rocket science. But what I'm trying to point out is for decades, the RCA has regulated the price that those entities can charge each other so that we don't get gouged. And what is the byproduct of that? Two things that are important to us. One, we have low-cost gas. Two, we have a supply that's now dwindling. Does anybody see a conflict with those two? Like, if the RCA said no to a rate increase in the past from a natural gas producer who said, you know what, I really need to have more for my gas. It's too expensive for me to go drill for gas, and I need to be able to pass that cost on to the customer. And the customers, through the RCA, right, us, we say, oh, we don't want higher cost gas. Get us lower cost gas. That's the only thing that we're going to take is lower cost gas. And trust the RCA. The RCA will make sure that you don't have lower cost gas, or that we have lower cost gas and that you are not going to be able to charge us what you actually want to charge us. Meaning the market, if the market was in charge, you would get higher cost gas because that's what the producers pulling it out of the ground would be required, or that's what it would require you to pay them in order for them to get it out of the ground. Okay. Well, what happened? The producers who are pulling the gas out of the ground, they pulled up and went elsewhere. They're drilling for oil or gas or doing business somewhere, but it's not in Cook Inlet. We've got Hillcorp, we've got Fury, we've got Cook Inlet Energy, and that's it. That's it. There's not enough producers in the Cook Inlet Basin to tap into the expensive gas that they know is there, but it's expensive to get at. So we're not, the market is being stymied, right? It's being stymied by the regulatory agency and the regulatory regime that we have in place, which causes us to not have natural gas. Yes, if we had natural gas out of Cook Inlet, it would be expensive. But you know what's going to happen? If we don't have a pipeline, NSTAR is going to import natural gas, and they're going to import LNG. And that natural gas, when it gets turned to gas and goes through to your house, is going to cost you the same as it would if they had went and got gas in Cook Inlet. But now who benefits? It's not the jobs and it's not the people who are pulling gas out of Cook Inlet. It's the people who are pulling gas out of Canada or wherever we're going to get gas from. Maybe we ship it in from Australia if it's cheaper to get it from Australia, or from wherever else, Mexico. But the closest supply of LNG for Alaskans is out of Kitimat in British Columbia. The parent company of NSTAR has a stake in the pipeline business that would stand to gain if Alaska was going to import LNG from Canada. So we've got a regulatory authority that's now through Senate Bill 108 or 180, sorry. I'm switching scenes here. I think this is it. No, that's what I'm looking for is Senator Giesel's document. Oh, I know, because I have to go back here and go open this up back up. There it is. All right. So Senator Giesel says that this legislation is needed to protect consumers and guarantee the lowest energy rates for ratepayers as Alaska looks to import LNG. So what is the RCA going to say to NSTAR when it goes to sign a contract for gas from whom? From whoever it's importing LNG from. The RCA is going to say, we don't want that gas, we don't want that price, we're going to have a lower price? Or is Alaska really just at the whim of the marketplace internationally, because we're not producing our own LNG? Like, what is the RCA actually going to regulate? What would they regulate? What are they going to protect? The price that it's going to cost to get LNG in is the price that it's going to cost to get it in, unless we're really talking about two different facilities here. I don't know what's going on with regard to the import facilities on Cook Inlet, but you've got Hillcorp and their business operation trying to import LNG, and you've got Glenfarne and Enstar and their business model trying to import LNG, and they're two different facilities. I don't know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I haven't connected the dots yet. I'm not sure I understand what's going on here. But what is it that the RCA is going to regulate for Alaskans? The price that it costs to import LNG is going to be the price that it takes to get it here. Plus what? Plus whatever Enstar wants to throw on top of it. So I guess that's what the RCA would do, I guess. It would take a look at that whole process and say, well, we're going to make sure that customers don't get gouged. Your cost of gas is going up either way. Whether we had local Cook Inlet gas being found or whether we have imported LNG, your price is going up. So to be honest, I don't know what to think of this because just this document doesn't explain why this is necessary. So I will be paying attention as this goes through Senate Finance. One of the things that we should see is some sort of fiscal modeling or some concept here of subject matter experts that are going to tell us why it's necessary for the added cost. Because who picks up the cost? Who picks up the cost of the regulatory burden that the RCA is going to put on Enstar? Who does Enstar pass that cost on to? Ratepayers. We're gonna get that additional cost, just like HEA does when they have cost that goes into the regulatory things that they have to do. There's cost associated with that. Well, the cooperative has to pay it, so that comes out of what we pay for the price of electricity. I hold this regulatory regime that the state of Alaska has, I hold it at least partially responsible for why we don't have producers in Cook Inlet producing gas. I would rather pay higher cost gas and have my neighbors have good jobs in Cook Inlet than be importing LNG at the same price. Costs me either way, but somebody else, some other jobs and some other economy gets to benefit. Yeah, of course, we're going to have some jobs at the import facility, the pipeline, the dock, right? There'll be some jobs there. But that means there's not going to be jobs for people going and finding natural gas here. So anyway, this is something that I will continue to stay abreast of and learn and fully understand what's going on here. I don't get to ask the questions in the committee meetings. I've got some that I would be asking. Paying attention, I promise. Yeah. Yeah, well, the RCA isn't helping Fairbanks price hike. There's only so much that the regulatory authority can do. But this is the point that I'm trying. I hope that maybe I glossed over it. when we start importing LNG, it's a certainty that that's going to happen in my mind right now. I don't like it, but it's going to happen. The price that it's coming in is going to be significantly higher than what we have been paying for local gas. The RCA is not going to be able to say, well, you can't charge us that much, because the ship carrying the LNG will just not come here. Like, you know, the RCA is not going to tell Canada to charge us less. Oh, you could find it somewhere else. You could get a boat to come up from Mexico and realize that those boats carry a lot of LNG, and the market in Alaska for South Central Alaska is a drop in the bucket. We're basically on our knees. Will you please come stop off on your way from wherever you're going, because the ship's got to come up all the way north into the North Gulf of Alaska in order to transit if they're going from Mexico up the western coast and then going to Asia, for example. They're going to come way north because there's less travel on the globe. And we're on our knees because we can't produce our own natural gas in Cook Inlet. We choose not to pay the prices that it would be necessary to get Cook Inlet gas. Please, we're on our knees. Will you stop by Cook Inlet and drop off some LNG? That's where we're at, because we don't have another option. Unless we have a pipeline, we don't have another option. You gonna learn to burn coal? We don't have another option. So I don't know what the RCA is going to regulate. No, you can't buy Canadian gas. You buy Australian gas. Well, now your tanker's got to travel all the way from Australia to Alaska. Anyway. You bet. I don't know who you are. Thanks for joining us tonight. Electric Life 64,000. It sounds like maybe you have some subject matter expertise on electricity. I hope. I hope I'm not too far off on what I'm saying here. This is, from my understanding, but makes sense to me in my mind. Maybe that's the only thing that matters that makes sense to me. But anyway, so what I did try to find is the conversations in Senate Resources about Senate Bill 180, and I was unsuccessful at figuring out which committee meeting they actually spoke about the bill. I'm not entirely sure that they spoke a whole lot about it, because again, I showed you the bill is one sentence, right? This statute is repealed. How long we going to talk about that? I mean, I don't know. Do all legislators know? Are they in depth with what the RCA does and this line of thinking? I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask your legislator what they think about the RCA and whether it's a good thing that the RCA will be regulating, or could be regulating if this bill passes, the LNG. There's a part of me, and this is why I'm a limited government guy, right? There's a part of me that says I'd rather take my chances with the market than I would with government, because the cost of government is always the hidden charge, right? You don't know how much it costs. You don't know. The government is the most expensive way to do anything that you're going to do is doing it through government. Anyway, so I honestly hope that this pipeline, while it doesn't stop this conversation, eventually when you have gas flowing to the LNG liquefaction plant in Nikiski, and then it's exported, we don't have to have this conversation because we won't be importing LNG. So it's for a short period of time, as long as the powers that be don't scuttle the project and leave us with the importation of LNG. Because that is happening. That is happening. Whether we have a pipeline or not, we're going to be importing LNG. We do not have the will in the legislature or anywhere else in this state to go find gas in Cook Inlet. It's too expensive. There aren't enough players there to go do it in the time frame and the quantities that we need. I'm not a pipeline guy. I'm not a gas guy. This is just my sense of the matter from talking to folks for 6 years or more. Yes, they can go find gas. It is technically possible to go find gas. And there are plenty of studies that show us that there is gas in Cook Inlet still, but it is expensive. It is hard to go find. It is expensive to get to. Craig, I'm not sure what this is. Burroughs making demands of the LNG project, pure fantasy. What are you referring to? I seem to remember something in the news where the Burroughs were saying, hey, we need our little bit of money from it. But property tax, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Corey, thanks for joining us tonight. Or build something like HERC. What is the acronym HERC? I am not familiar with that. I probably am, just not the acronym. Oh, Corey, sorry, I didn't see this. You said who appoints these members? You're probably talking about the RCA, yeah? Okay, good question. I have an answer, and I'll just point you right to the RCA. It says right here. Bam. Oops, here we go. Here we go, right there in the middle. Can I make this bigger? Control, make bigger. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, there are 5 full-time commissioners appointed by the governor and then confirmed by the legislature, and they serve for 6-year terms. The RCA elects the chairman for 1-year term. Chairman's the administrative head of the RCA, also the policy spokesperson, assigns the issues that they're going to talk about. So it sets the agenda for their meeting, their work. Chairman is ultimately responsible for the timeliness of RCA's adjudication process, meeting statutory timelines and serving as the RCA's liaison to the legislative and executive branches of state government. Interesting that he doesn't have a responsibility to get back to the public in a timely manner. He is responsible for the timeliness of the adjudication process, but who's he responsible to? To the legislature or to the people who are being regulated? Okay, so the RCA, government agency, includes administrative law judges, engineers, financial analysts, telecommunications specialists, tariff analysts, consumer protection officers, paralegals, administrative and support staff. All to make sure that you don't get gouged by those providing utility costs or utility services to you. Here's the kicker. Who owns HEA? Anybody? Who owns HEA? Homer Electric Association. Who owns any one of the co-ops? I'm sure the internet is slow because you guys all know this. Okay, I'll tell you. You do. You own it. The members own it. It's a member-owned co-op. You elect a board to oversee the running of your electrical utility. And then you pay with a smaller dividend, or if in lieu of a dividend, you would pay in taxes of some kind. You pay for all of the RCA staff and all of the regulatory process that the RCA does. You pay for that at the state level. So the RCA can tell you, as the owner of your cooperative, how much you can buy gas for, or buy electricity for, or charge your members for. As the owner of the cooperative, wouldn't we expect the people who we elect to the cooperative to be doing exactly that for us? Finding the lowest cost electricity out there, finding the lowest cost gas out there. Isn't that what we would expect them to do? Why do we need to pay more for the regulatory authority to give us permission to do what we, as the owner, want our board to go do? Craig, I saw that. That was good news. That may got us 1 or 2 new wells. I'm kidding. I don't know what the success rate is for Hillcorp, but you can bet on the fact that they're not going to have 27 new wells. But yes, that's happening. And if they're able to produce gas in the short term within the next 12 to 24 months, then I mean, it's a guarantee that they get it sold. Just at what price? Again, the regulatory authority is going to go to come to NSTAR when Hillcorp. Well, I back up, and we shouldn't forget that Hillcorp has contracts with NSTAR that it may not be able to fill right now. So it needs to go out and drill more wells. And I believe because of the leases that they own in Cook Inlet, they have a requirement to go and produce, or at least go and drill for gas on those leases to maintain those leases. So yeah, they're probably being told by the state that they need to go do it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe not. But if they're able to produce gas, then that will help with the shortage that we have experienced this winter and previous winters. Again, I don't know why you need the regulatory authority to fix this problem. The market is going to take care of itself. If you got angry customers because they don't have gas, then they'll pay just about anything to get gas, right? Why is there a regulatory authority that says, well, you need to pay less? You're going to pay whatever the guy is digging it out of the ground is going to charge you. Like, that's how the market works. If it's too expensive, then the next guy comes in and drills for oil and he charges less than the other guy. That's how the market works. Of all of the regulation that's happened over the last decade, or maybe 2 decades, how much of the conversation said, you know what we really need to be focusing on is whether we're going to have enough natural gas in 10 years, in 20 years? Was that the leading factor in the conversations for the RCA when they're going through this adjudication process? Or was it, oh, we don't want to see our gas prices rise? I think that's probably the underlying factor here, is they're like, well, we can't have gas prices. We need to keep a lid on gas prices. That's what we do. We control prices so that the customers don't get gouged, and nobody's thinking long-term. Like, if the RCA was thinking long-term, then they would be the only organization in state government that was. So my gut tells me the RCA is not thinking long-term. I'm just rolling the dice here and saying every other agency in the state of Alaska thinks short-term, annual budgets, lowest cost. Nobody else is thinking long-term. So why would the RCA be thinking long-term? Did somebody answer me on what HERC means? Or was that Hillcorp? No? Build something like Herc. Somebody tell me what Herc is. I'm sure they're using it as pushback on taxing LLCs. Well, that hasn't happened yet, so it's out there pushing back. But I guess they can announce they're going to drill wells, and then when you pass the tax, they'll say, hey, well, I guess we're not going to be able to drill for wells now. Pretty hard to regulate monopolies. Well, I think it's actually fairly easy. The statute just says you get to regulate them, and there's no argument. Like, I just don't know what are you regulating? There's the price that they're getting is the price that they're getting, and the price that they are going to charge you is the price you're going to pay, and the RCA is going to say yes or no that that's fair or not. I mean, if the price for natural gas is too expensive, then we heat with something else. We find a different alternative. Or somebody goes out and produces more gas, or somebody figures out how to import LNG, right? Like, it's the market's going to figure it out. We don't need the regulatory agency, and we don't need that regulatory cost to figure it out for us. The market will figure it out. Okay. Corey says Herc burns roughly 1,000 tons of trash daily, generating electricity for 25,000 homes and providing steam heat to downtown buildings. Interesting. Hey, look at that. I still don't know what Herc is. I am going to go, what is acronym? HERC. No, that can't be it. Is Herc something local in Alaska? I'm not tracking that. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Oh, that's my son. Good evening, Wyatt. Hennepin Energy Recovery Center. It burns garbage for electricity. Okay. I said we're going to learn something new today. Do we have one of those in Anchorage? Is that what I'm understanding? Corey, Herc burns roughly 1,000 tons of trash daily, generating electricity to downtown buildings. So I'm assuming that you're saying that that's happening in one of the cities in Alaska. Anyway, found something that I am ignorant on. At what scale of energy production emissions does the regulatory agency get involved? Good question. Good question. You came in late. Let me find my... Good question. When does the regulatory agency kick in? We read it. We read it a minute ago. Whom does the regulatory agency regulate? Most entities providing telecommunications, electrical, natural gas, water, sewer, garbage, or steam services to 10 or more customers. So you got to be a business serving 10 or more customers to get regulated. Also pipeline. Did it say pipeline up there? Also pipelines. There you go. 10 or more customers. Then you're big enough. Minnesota. Corey, so you're saying Minnesota has a Herc unit. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think Alaska did. Anyway. Let me see here. Okay, I've covered everything that I had on my notes that I thought was important. I want everybody to keep Senator Rauscher in your prayers and pray for a new staff member that is able to hit the ground running for him, because I know he needs it. It's a challenge to lose a staff member partway through a session and try to train somebody up and get the ball going again after it's been dropped. Why don't we have a HERC unit? So that unit is using trash as the fuel source. Yeah. It's not using natural gas or electricity or coal or something like that as a fuel source, or maybe that's the feeder's fuel source, and then the trash takes over. Seems to me not all trash is immediately burnable. Like, it'll burn eventually. Again, somebody who knows something about a HERC needs to create their own podcast, and I don't know, maybe I need to have somebody on, invite somebody that knows something about a HERC. I don't know anything about a HERC. My guess is that it's not cost effective. That's what my guess is. In one like, if Minneapolis is using a HERC, Minneapolis has got how many hundreds of thousands or how many a million people in the city? And we have 700,000 in the whole state. What's the population of Anchorage? 200,000 or 300,000. My guess is that you got to have an order of magnitude larger population in order for that to actually be beneficial and pay off. Would just be my guess. I don't know. But I mean, that's the answer you're going to get. I don't know why we don't have a HERC. Probably the cost of electricity, cost of energy, and not enough trash, not enough people to make it cost effective. I guess there's a third option. not a big enough vision. I don't know. Good question. Let's find out. I'll ask around and see what I can find out. Let me make a note. I got a document here. Why don't we use a HERC to produce energy? I'm not going to remember what that says. Let's say trash burning. All right, guys. Cool. All right. It is 8:23 p.m. on a Friday night, and I'm done talking politics. I'm done talking government. I'm going to go relax for a few minutes. I'll probably turn on the TV and fall asleep. Anybody else do that? Why was the hydro dam taken out of Seward? Corey, you are full of really good questions. Why was the hydro dam taken out of Seward? Well, that was before my time. I did not know that Seward had a hydro dam that was taken out. It must have been small. Why was hydro dam taken out of Seward? Got me. Hey, keep those questions coming, Corey. You got some great questions. I'm guessing that a hydro dam in Seward didn't have enough customers to make it feasible to maintain it. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know. When did they take the dam out? I don't remember Seward ever having a dam. That's strange. All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you again Monday. You'll probably catch a number of legislators in Anchorage or in their home if they're on the rail belt. and can get back home. I bet you there are a good number of them are licking their wounds back home. You said in 41? As in 1941? I don't know. I guess it is possible that what happened in 1941 is relevant today. But I don't know. That's why I didn't know the Seward had a hydro dam, because I wasn't around. All right. I think we're good. I wish you all a pleasant rest of your evening, and I hope you have a productive weekend, even if that's relaxing and catching up on sleep. Make it a good one. All right. We'll see you again Monday, and I'm sure we'll find something to chat about. Write your questions down this weekend if you got them, and then hit me with them. I'll see you. I've got 2 questions here that I'll try to find answers to. All right. You guys have a good night.